What a very, very special occasion. And before I introduce our speaker, the author of this very special biography, there are so many people who wanted to give some sort of notice or tribute to our guest here today, Boogie Wineglass, that before we start the program, I just briefly want to mention those two tributes. First of all, we were sitting in this room on a Thursday afternoon at an Aaron Fleck luncheon, God rest his soul, about 4 or 5 years ago. It was after the fire. And Rick Valentine, the chief at that time and now, was here talking about fire prevention to this small group of business people. And he also mentioned that, we're going to have to get 2 smaller trucks because we've learned now that we have to maneuver in smaller spaces. And so we're going to order them. And one Boogie Wineglass who happened to be sitting there said, "Chief Valentine, how much do these trucks cost?" And I as I recall, it was between $200,000 and $250,000. And this said, Boogie Wineglass said, "You'll have a check on your desk Monday morning." So, as a tribute, that's just a small part of the story you're going to hear. But as a tribute, Chief Valentine has brought that truck, and it's standing in front of the JCC on the street. That's why those cones were there that you couldn't park. So that is a wonderful gesture on the part of Chief Valentine, and we thank you. The second gesture is from Dance Aspen, which Gail and Boogie support more than you can know. And in that honor, I'm going to ask Gail to please come up and introduce what you're going to see from Dance Aspen. It will take 4 minutes. So sit tight, enjoy it. Gail, please come up.
Good afternoon. I'm glad to see all of y'all here today. Boogie and I are very involved with Dance Aspen, and Boogie's dance experience goes back to when he danced on the Buddy Dean show, similar to American Bandstand back in Baltimore. And I started ballet when I was 4, and I've been very fortunate since I've been involved with the dancers to be able to actually take class with them every day. So I see their dedication, I see how hard they work, and just their love for dance and how they want to really share it with this community. So right now I'm going to turn you over to Laurel Winton. She's the executive director of Dance Aspen, the founder of Dance Aspen, and she is going to introduce our dancers today.
Thank you so much, Gail. Gail and Boogie have been incredible for our organization. We actually would not be around if it wasn't for them. And because we're around, we're able to support the livelihoods of these incredible artists, 2 of which will be performing tonight, Miles and Nicole. Let's give a round of applause for them. We are going to be showing a short excerpt in honor of Boogie, and this is part of a full performance that will take place at the Wheeler Opera House August 27th and 28th. And Gail has given a special gift to certain people under their chairs. If everyone wants to take a look now or later, you might find a ticket or 2 to our upcoming show. So thank you for being here, and thank you, Boogie. This is for you.
That was truly beautiful. I hope you could see it. It's not a ballet studio, so we're kind of making do. But thank you so much to Dan Aspen. What a beautiful treat that was. Well, now that sage has gotten here,
Sky.
Greg Lewis is an Emmy Award-winning writer and a recipient of honors for outstanding journalism, documentary excellence, and TV production. He's a published poet. Remember that when you read this book, it's the poetry. He's such a deep writer. He's a poet, essayist, and humorist. He's perhaps best known for his on-camera commentary for NBC Sports, CBS Sports, HBO, Turner, and numerous programming syndicators. He's covered Olympic Games in Japan, Korea, the former Yugoslavia, France, Spain, Norway, and the United States. Not many, just a few. Lewis, 78, has lived in Aspen and the Roaring Fork Valley for 60 years. He's a graduate of Middlebury College and received an honorable discharge from the Marine Corps. He was recently inducted into the U.S. Skiing and Snowboarding Hall of Fame. It's really an honor to introduce you to Greg Lewis. Please welcome him with me.
Thank you very much for being here. Thank you, Alan. Thank you, Rabbi, for welcoming all of us to the JCC. Our topic this afternoon is Mr. Leonard Michael Weinglass, known simply as Boogie, not a common name for many 83-year-old men. We'll talk about where the name came from and what it means and how it was respected. Let me explain how this biography came to be. I didn't know Boogie real well, but I knew he was a great basketball fan. And my girlfriend here, girlfriend for life, I should say, I have to say it. She went to Duke, lives in Durham, has 4 amazing season tickets to Duke basketball games. So we invited Boogie and Gail to come to a Duke UNC North Carolina game, which is, most of you know, one of the great rivalries in sport. And they said yes, they'd be happy to join us. And over that, about 4-day weekend, we talked about a lot of things, and the idea of Boogie's biography came up, and he said, go for it. So it took me 4 years. I didn't write the book all that time. I had an injury and there were some delays, but anyway, we got it done. Let's see here. Boogie first came to Aspen in 1968, and Aspen hasn't been the same since. On the back of a book, there's a poem I wrote called Good, Bad, Me, and it's the briefest summary of his life. Let's start there with this introduction of Boogie. Good, bad, me. Over 80 years, I've done it all, wrong and right and in between. I'm kind and loving and street fight mean. I adore the ladies. I've married 3. I'm a damn good man with a bad history. I gambled large and sometimes won, but lost millions and millions before I was done. I played all-state hoops, but skipped most of school. I learned on the streets I'm no one's fool. I changed the businesses of fashion and food with torn jeans and diner attitude. I've been wild all night and wild all day and cared for those who can't make their way. I beat my troubles. I found my niche. I was born poor and I'll die rich. Rich in every way, but richest of all when I give it away. Don't you tear up, because I will cry. So how does a kid from the mean streets of Baltimore build a business empire, yet for a long time live a reckless life? The book starts with an epigram. Two things define you: your patience when you have nothing, and your attitude when you have everything. Boogie started life with nothing. In the book, I described it this way. He didn't wonder often. Wonder was a privilege, and privilege wasn't part of his vocabulary or his experience. Wondering if he could rise above his situation was a waste of time. The gravitational pull of his negative circumstance was greater than even Sir Isaac Newton could have comprehended, and seemingly greater than Leonard Weinglass could escape. What prospects could he possibly have in life? He came from nothing. He had nothing. Nowhere to go, and even if he did, no way to get there. Big trouble was the only thing in his life. Little was the dimension of everything. Little house, little opportunity, little interest in school, little money. His parents owned a little corner market and had little hope for anything more. Both of Boogie's parents were the only members of their families to survive the Holocaust. They arrived in Baltimore, his father from a shtetl in western Russia, and his mother from Nazi-occupied Poland, with nothing but hope. Boogie's father, Solomon, decided the quickest way to get rich was through gambling. I wrote, "Little leaves no room for big, except in the mind of a gambler, because a gambler always believes," thank you, sir, because a gambler always believes there's a long shot that will come in, that life can turn on a dime if the odds are right, the cards are right, the moment is right. Solomon Weinglass sought that moment compulsively at nearby Pimlico Thoroughbred Racecourse and at a closer-to-home makeshift poker parlor, a room bare except for a round wooden table and 8 hard chairs, and a house built without pride, where hapless Jewish men, old in years, or old in their soul, or old in both, gathered to play cards, tell lies, fill the room with smoke from unfiltered cigarettes and cheap cigars, and lose money they didn't have to lose. Too often, when Saul had to babysit his youngest son, Leonard, he took the boy with him to the poker room, gave him a candy bar, and sat him in a corner with instructions to stay quiet. "I won't be long," he promised. But Saul never stopped gambling. He lost the corner market in a card game. He lost all dignity. He lost his health. He lost everything. Boogie had little more than his fists to have any self-esteem. He became a street fighter and an avenger. The story unfolds this way. Every Friday evening, 20 minutes before sunset, Boogie's mother, Nettie, clicked off the electric lights in her home and lit candles. In the fragile flicker of that holy light, she honored her deceased family members and all Jews who perished in the chambers of Hitler's industrialized genocide. The weekly ceremony ignited fierce resentment in Label. Label is Yiddish for Leonard, as many of you probably know, and what his parents called him. As the boy became a man, his loathing of bigotry intensified. His evolution into a feared avenger accelerated. For Boogie, the agony of Friday nights never waned. Watching my mother's heart break over and over and over made me want to smash my fist into every mouth that ever said anything against Jews. I can't stand bigotry. I can't stand people who are prejudiced because of your skin, your religion, any differences. And that became the fire in me. Meanwhile, basketball was Boogie's salvation. He didn't care about school. I'm not sure he even knew where the school was. He almost never went to class, but basketball he loved. And I wrote that this way. From the time he learned to dribble all the way through high school, basketball's rules were the only rules he followed. The music of the game filled him with joy. Basketball was jazz, 2 quintets in a showdown played to the backbeat of dribbling, accompanied by the syncopated squeaking of soft-soled shoes on the court. And then the solos, the improvisation, the spectacular riffs of the game's stars, passing, shooting, rebounding. He loved the harmony of a perfect play, the cymbal crash of a slam dunk, and the drum roll of applause that followed. This was his rhythm, his music. These were the sounds he loved most. The basketball court was his escape, his hope. Basketball put Boogie in the spotlight. Fighting put Boogie in the spotlight. Dancing put Boogie in the spotlight too. That's how he earned the name Boogie. He won a dance contest. But the name Boogie meant and still means something more. This is from the book. Hey Boogie, his friends called again. Not Hey Lenny, not Hey Leonard, and not the Yiddish derivative of Leonard his mother affectionately called him, Label. Whether formal, friendly, or familial, all three of those names meant lion-hearted, which he certainly was, but these were assigned names, not an earned name. Boogie was an earned name. Boogie exuded cachet. Boogie was someone so cool, so calm, so agile and quick that he deserved a unique moniker that captured his character and charisma. Boogie was a name uttered with respect, if not reverence. Anyone who mocked the name didn't forget the price of effrontery. Benson Shockett, a high school fan of Boogie, remembers he was loitering outside Mandel's Delicatessen and a restaurant on Reisterstown Road on the outskirts of Baltimore, talking about nothing with another 15-year-old boy. I forget his name, Benson says, reflecting on an incident that's lingered in his memory for 6 decades. I can picture us standing there when Boogie crossed the street from the diner. He was coming right towards us. Benson shakes his head and grins. What happened next was unforgettable. What kind of stupid name is Boogie? The other boy sniped, with an easy shot of Boogie, who was casually approaching. He continued walking toward them, expressionless, quiet, unhurried. Benson Shockett knew what that meant. He took a step sideways. At that same moment, Boogie's explosive right jab flew into the face of the other teenager, who got the answer to his question in 5 syllables, 4 clenched fingers and a thumb. Boogie's fist, the now forgotten teenager, did not say anything more. So how did Boogie decide he could be something more than a street kid? One of the most powerful moments that changed the course of his life was watching his older brother Jackie try out for the Baltimore Orioles. On Jackie's tryout day, everyone who could showed up to watch magic happen, and it did. Jackie hit the Oriole pitchers with a plum until they brought in a lefty who threw curveballs that Jackie missed or popped up for easy catches, and sliders that slid under and over his bat as if they were allergic to wood. His confidence fell into the dirt around home plate and disappeared in dust clouds of defeat. In high school, he had faced little left-handed pitching, but now it came at him fast and devious. Everything was backward, the pitcher's motion, his release, the spin of the ball, the vectors of the curve, and Jackie got backwards too. He swung, he whiffed. The only thing that went out of the park was his possibility of playing Major League Baseball. Leonard was 12. He observed. He remembered how disappointment shattered Jackie. He remembered the condolences for a dead dream, the long sorrow that followed, and the lesson of it all. You don't get many chances to hit home runs in life, and when you do, you must. And that inspired him throughout everything he did. When Boogie graduated from high school, he was 20 years old. 20. He'd gone to 4 different high schools. They didn't know he was there, but he says he went. And then he went into the military. Despite being the starting point guard on the Maryland All-State basketball team, he had not received any D1 college offers. I think they saw his report card. But Boogie wanted to be somebody. His time in the National Guard boot camp made that clear and important to him. By the way, he was so disruptive in boot camp, the National Guard made him go through boot camp twice. This is from the book. Abuse is to boot camp what cold is to winter. If you don't want to be cold, stay out of the wind. If a recruit wants to suffer as little abuse as possible, he should take shelter in anonymity. Boogie couldn't find anonymity if it were tucked in his back pocket. And if he ever did find it, he would throw it away. He had always thrown it away. To be invisible was to be nothing. He had nothing, but he never wanted to be nothing. Halfway through the first day of boot camp, Boogie demonstrated that he was not nothing. Boogie's platoon merged with the others already inside the mess hall, a large room in which efficiency eliminated charm, where 300 soldiers could eat at one time, seated at long tables. A queue of recruits weaved through the corral in the cafeteria. It moved swiftly, silently, until the man behind Boogie pushed him and demanded he close the already small gap between him and another recruit, a step ahead. "Keep moving, asshole, I'm hungry." Boogie turned around to glimpse the loudmouth, but said nothing. The man was larger, rugged in appearance, cocky in expression, and threatening in demeanor. Boogie just wanted lunch. Then the guy behind him shouted again, "No wonder you're so slow. Your nose is in the way." His smirk gave Boogie a clean shot at parted lips and exposed teeth. With a motion perfected in scores of fights and untold hours hitting a speed bag, Boogie Wineglass delivered sudden violence what's the word I used here? Amazed, thank you. Amazed his platoon sergeant and silenced the entire mess hall. One punch that exploded from the hostile streets of Baltimore, powered by 20 years of resentment, hit an unknown, unsuspecting, unprepared man in his teeth like a bowling ball rumbling into a row of pins. Boogie watched the stranger fall to the floor, but rejected the temptation to drop down on his chest and rearrange his face. Instead, he stepped back into the cafeteria line as if nothing had happened. Boogie didn't gloat. The recruit on the floor didn't rise. Boogie ignored everyone around him as they stood in silent amazement. He was hungry. That morning, the cooks had served SOS, shit on a shingle, creamed chipped beef on toast. There was some left over. It smelled good. He moved forward. Behind him, the line stepped over the man still lying on the floor. Another piece of shit on a shingle. After his time in the military, Boogie got a job as a traveling salesman. 2 quick stories from the book. To get his big break to be a salesman of Highlander, a leather apparel company, Boogie had to go to New York City to be interviewed. He'd never been to New York City. He'd never been on a train. He'd never had an interview with a CEO of a company. He just knew he needed a job. On the way to New York, the train is slowed by a nor'easter storm. He's worried he's going to miss the meeting. His train stops in Philadelphia. He jumps off, rushes into the station, finds a phone, calls Bernie Gold, the CEO he's going to meet with, and there's no answer. He waits a couple of minutes. He tries again. No answer. He decides to return to the train, but as he's approaching the track, he realizes the train is pulling out of the station. To make matters worse, his brother's topcoat, which was new and expensive and Jackie had saved for months to buy, and loaned Boogie so he'd look sharp, is folded on his seat. As Boogie watches the train disappear, he is shattered, forlorn, desperate, afraid his big break is gone, just like the topcoat. But he refuses to give up, to sulk. He knows no self-pity. He catches the next train, a local, and finally arrives at Penn Station hours late for the appointment. It's pouring rain. It was late rush hour when he arrived. People were scurrying everywhere. I don't know how many of you have been in Penn Station when it's raining in New York, but it's quite an experience. People were scurrying everywhere. 10 minutes passed before he found what he thought was the right exit. Stairs going up, congested with people coming down. Briefcases hit him in the knees and thighs. Umbrellas snagged his coat and poked him. He saw more close combat in Penn Station than he had in the National Guard. It was all unsettling. On the surface, he dashed through puddles. The water drenched his socks and collected in his pant cuffs. He dug Gold's address out of a pocket and searched for a taxi. They were everywhere, swarming yellow checkers, weaving, splashing, disgorging passengers and filling with passengers, seemingly at the same time. But the taxi line was half a block long. He decided to spend his intended cab fare to buy an umbrella from a street vendor and walk to Gold's office. And he did, blocks and blocks, a journey longer than the cheap umbrella would last. He threw it in a trash barrel. What am I doing? I don't even know if Gold will be there, wherever there is, whenever I get where there is. Then he ordered himself to keep going. He remembered what his father told him, implored him. You're the one who can do it, Label. Your brothers can't. Your mother can't. When Boogie finally arrived at the office building, he raced into an elevator and shook himself like a wet dog. Hurriedly, he attempted to make himself presentable. Still, he looked exasperated when he walked into Bernie Gold's office. In contrast, Bernie was dressed in conspicuous sophistication. His expression conveyed amazement. You're? Yes, sir. I'm your man. I'm Boogie, Leonard Weinglass. I had some problems on the train ride, and Bernie, momentarily speechless, stared at Boogie, rain dripping from his clothing. What a mess, he thought, and what tenacity. He was immediately certain he had a winner. God damn, boy, he said, looking up and down at the shivering young man who had arrived in his office hours late. God damn, boy, he repeated after hearing Boogie's tales of his trip from Baltimore. You don't give up, do you? Bernie looked at Boogie again, up and down. I like you, Mr. Weinglass. May I call you Boogie? So Boogie is hired. He's a gifted and relentless salesman, and he's on the road with another salesman named Bob Levy, who told me this story. We arrived in some town and started hitting on ladies. Can you believe that? But had no real luck. And then Boogie tells me, I was hitting on this one girl. I thought for sure I had her. But she was getting married that Saturday. And we were there like on a Monday or Tuesday. She said she wouldn't come over that night. But then she said she'd come over the next morning around 7 o'clock. I thought, that's never happening. And then at 7 o'clock in the morning, we hear a knock on the hotel door, and there she is, bigger than life. So I pretended I was asleep, and Boogie took her over to his bed, and they made out, which was pretty interesting. Then he said to her, I think you should play around with my friend. Well, I had a cast on my leg, but Boogie convinced her to get on my bed, and while he held my cast, she and I played around. Levy pauses to catch his breath and revel in the wild story. That was pretty interesting, he grins. When we drove away from that town, we had a big discussion about how wonderful Southern girls were. And I thought to myself, this guy is a master at seduction. Freaking unbelievable. That's Boogie. So he opens the first store. Within a year, Boogie is the #1 salesman in the apparel company, and then he discovers his regional manager is siphoning from his commissions. Boogie quits and decides to open his own store. It's 1968. The war in Vietnam is rupturing America. I wrote it this way. At that time, Harvard history professor Timothy Leary was preaching tune in, turn on, drop out. And Boogie was selling come in, try on, strut out. But Boogie did tune in. Confusion was opportunity. When he played basketball, he always exploited confusion. He charged through it to the net, he shot, and he scored. I smelled opportunity. I smelled money, he remembers. I'd never had any money of my own, real money. I wanted to see it and touch it. I wanted to spend it. No, he says, that's not exactly right. I wanted to use it. Boogie conceived a business plan. He decided he would defy America's fashion norms with denim, faded and ripped at the knees, bell-bottoms cut so wide they swallowed platform shoes for men, cheeky denim short shorts for women, and blouses that revealed braless breasts, pants with 1-inch zippers that hung so low and so snug that the wearer was fully dressed and naked at the same time. Interviews for employees were more like auditions for high school cheerleaders or tryouts for a chorus line. The criteria were everything the feminist movement decried but hadn't reformed. Sex appeal was essential. The store would function like a party everyone wanted to crash. People, personnel were as critical as product to Boogie. He deftly identified extraordinary talent in his executive hires and promoted people from within whenever possible. He sought and selected people whose talent he often recognized before they did, and then he set the standards of performance. How did he know whom to choose? Boogie knew because he learned to see through phonies and fools in his youth. In order to survive in school and in the homeboy neighborhoods where hookers and hustlers operated, as if they were as benign as moms and daughters peddling Girl Scout cookies, he had to learn things no school book reveals and no Harvard MBA ever learns in a classroom. With success and money, he found Las Vegas. On an oasis of excess in a desert of dreams, the kingdom of neon beckons to all who seek experiences no scripture condones. Welcome to Las Vegas, the mecca of gambling, where vice is the commodity that sustains the community, and luck dances on roulette wheels, hides in decks of cards, and changes her name with every roll of the dice. By 1992, Merry-Go-Round was an empire of 900 stores, including a Boogie's Diner in Las Vegas, where multi-millionaire Leonard Boogie Wineglass was known as a very big bettor, a whale in Las Vegas speak. Ocean whales blow spume. Las Vegas whales blow money. To earn the title whale, a player must be known to win or lose $1 million each time they play. Boogie's line of credit in the casinos where he played was $1 million. The hotel and casino management would give him a second million upon request. It took him 3 trips to rehab facilities before he kicked his gambling habit. The first trip to Sierra Tucson, on the first weekend he was there, he broke into the executive office building, broke into the CEO's office, grabbed the phone off his desk, crawled under the desk, and called his bookie. He was dismissed. So what finally pushed him to seek help again and overcome his addiction? This is from the book. He never fully confronted his problem. He simply gave himself permission to ignore it until he was on the phone talking with his daughter, and another phone rang and he told her he needed to take the call. Hold on, this will only be a minute. That minute passed. He reviewed odds, placed bets, and lost memory of his daughter, waiting on the other phone, and she did wait for a while. When he finally returned to the other line, she wasn't there. He called out her name. She didn't reply. Only the dial tone spoke. You screwed up, Boogie. You only care about you, just you. And then he remembered his father's poker room pledge. I won't be long, I won't be long, I won't be long. But won't always became will, and will became trouble, and trouble became disaster. I can't do this anymore, Boogie cried. I need help. That was it, Boogie admits. I knew it was time to go back into rehab. And of course, he beat the habit, the addiction. Boogie had a reckless heart, but at the same time, a giving heart. This is the story of Holly Dahlman. Here's the scene set. Boogie is at his neighbor's ranch in Aspen looking for the owner. He asks a young woman leading a horse into the barn, "Where's Carol?" The young woman turns around to answer. Boogie stopped in place, choking on disbelief at what he saw. The teenage woman suffered from craniofacial birth anomalies. Part of her face was too wide. She had a cleft lip and a cleft palate and a clubbed foot. Her features expressed the agony of Picasso's distorted faces in his paintings. Picasso once said, "There are so many realities that in trying to encompass them all, one ends in darkness." The darkness that confined the young woman by the barn made Boogie's heart shiver. Moments later, he located the ranch owner, Carol Dobkin, who explained that the woman's name was Holly Dahlman. Boogie wept behind his eyes. If his heart could have released tears, his shirt would have dripped agony. In that instant, he committed himself to Holly's care. Let me jump forward a few paragraphs. Sculpting the 60-foot-high stone faces of Lincoln, Jefferson, Washington, and Teddy Roosevelt into the granite of Mount Rushmore took 14 years. Holly Dahlman endured the trauma of 30 reconstructive surgeries over 3 decades. She remembered each procedure, the hope and misery of incrementally reshaping bones again and again to free her soul. My mother was struggling to pay my medical bills. Doctors' charges were overwhelming. They just kept coming and coming. I couldn't have done this without Boogie, Holly states. I don't know where I'd be, what I'd be. I just don't know. Boogie contributed $750,000 to Holly Dahlman's medical care, which reshaped her face and reconfigured her opportunities in life. Holly attended Mount Holyoke College in Massachusetts and was accepted at Yale and Johns Hopkins medical schools. She chose Hopkins because it was in Baltimore, Boogie's hometown. The teenage girl no one would look at is now a successful internist and family physician in Baltimore. That is one of the most amazing stories I've ever heard. I think we all know Boogie's Diner in Aspen. It was controversial when it came in. I wrote it this way. Zoning reform, loathed by many longtime locals, came to Aspen in the 1970s. Change was happening far too quickly for half the community. Side streets were dirt until the mid-60s. And then in 1972, Aspen's first stoplight was installed on Main Street. It was as controversial as a Christmas tree in Tehran. More change followed. Palazzi's Texaco at the intersection of Hunter and Cooper Streets in the core of the town was replaced by a high-end jewelry store. The Sinclair station a block away was transformed into a pricey ice cream emporium. Tom's Market, a small grocery another block away, was converted into a chic mountaineering store. Then, in 1983, McDonald's Corporation purchased the building in the town core that had housed the headquarters for the Aspen Skiing Company. Fear of an invasion of Big Macs and Quarter Pounders became the heaviest debate in town. Aspen was in shock. Many locals felt change was happening too quickly on a scale too grand. In 1986, Boogie bought the downtown Aspen property across the street from the jewelry store that had replaced the Texaco. This coveted corner, once the location of Aspen's only bowling alley, and more recently, a highly popular barbecue joint called The Shaft, was emblematic of Aspen's revered history and the town's mounting resistance to change. When Boogie announced his plan to raise the Shaft and replace it with a retail store downstairs and a diner upstairs, some Aspenites felt they had gotten the Shaft. Before completing the story of Boogie's Diner, I want to remind you of the film Diner, which was a fictional portrayal of Boogie's teenage years at the Hilltop Diner. The movie starred Mickey Rourke as Boogie, and in the book, now this is Boogie's Diner. This is the real diner that he hung out at as a teenager. His royal court was the Hilltop Diner, a chromium-clad eatery iconic of the era that glistened in the sun. During his high school years, which lasted until he was 20, Boogie reigned at the Hilltop. The diner specialized in cuisine cooked in an oil-slick griddle or on a bubbling deep-fat fryer. Seductive smell of cheeseburgers, French fries, and sizzling grease enveloped the Hilltop like a cocoon. Inside that cocoon, Leonard Weinglass came of age. In a synagogue, Bar Mitzvah proclaimed him a man. In the Hilltop Diner, he transformed into what he would be his entire life, the leader, more determined, more confident, tougher than everybody else, and at the same time, more beguiling. His reputation was so big it transcended any requirements of accuracy. Houdini could escape chains. Boogie could escape destiny. Now jump back to the diner in Aspen. Boogie's Diner opened in 1987. Soon the pleasing fragrance of matzo ball soup and juicy burgers drifted over the corner of Cooper and Hunter, and music drifted throughout the building. 15 steps from the retail level to the diner were a stairway to heaven, tempting you to say, "To hell with my diet." The riser on each step was a mini billboard promoting an enticing menu choice, the Blue Plate Special, salads, pies, fries, shakes, malts, seemingly every diner delicacy. 30 years after he and his knights at the Formica table held court in the Hilltop Diner, Leonard Boogie Wineglass had reached the summit of success. Whenever he was in Aspen, Boogie stood on the top step of the diner in the role of a sort of Jewish St. Peter, deciding who got in and where they sat. But everyone had access unless they behaved badly, and if they did, they met the street tough incarnation of Boogie, who didn't care if the disruptive patron was a billionaire, a star from Hollywood, or a hero from Major League Sports. Boogie would ask patrons to behave or leave. Every once in a while, he'd confront someone who would say, "Do you know who I am?" It was a question they soon wished they had never asked. Boogie's Diner was egalitarian. From 1987 to 2015, Boogie's Diner served good food at good prices. The diner and its companion merry-go-round, like retail clothing store one level below, became beloved Aspen institutions. You could fill your shopping bag with trendy clothes downstairs and fill your belly with comfort food upstairs. This was where teens celebrated secular communion with a Coke and fries, and the town's power brokers made deals under the spell of the diner's gravy-drenched, open-faced turkey sandwich. How many people ate at Boogie's? See, if you could get the price of a burger from each of them, you could pay your rent. As an aside, in my opinion, Boogie's Diner was the last center of community in Aspen. But Boogie himself is still an Aspen force. Last weekend, of course, was the Boogie Bash, one of the many programs that Boogie supports that make this valley a better place. As most of you know, it takes place at Boogie's Ranch outside of town and is staged inside an enormous tent. I wrote it this way. Boogie strolls through the tent and shakes everyone's hand, making small talk become big talk. He makes fun of himself, compliments others, and tells a story and another story. He weaves laughter into warmth and warmth into memories that no one forgets, because he makes you feel like you have touched greatness, and you have. Boogie's Big Top is bigger, happier, and more fun than P.T. Barnum's Big Top. Indeed, Barnum, the king of circus extravaganzas, would be envious and at the same time proud of the host of the Boogie Bash. Barnum, who was most famous for his stinging comment that a sucker is born every minute, made two other statements that Boogie doesn't know, but he has lived. Barnum said, "No one ever made a difference by being like everyone else." Barnum also said, "The noblest art is making others happy." Making people happy is Boogie's reason to be now, and he isn't like anyone else, and no one else will ever be like he is. It's no wonder Boogie would love it in Aspen. The town was music to his irreverent soul. He did things his way. Aspen does too. Aspen spins on its own axis, which is why it has 5 seasons: winter, spring, summer, fall, and night. Night is the longest season, and is never more than a few hours away. Night, the time of indulgence and intrigue, the time of breaking rules. Aspen was incubated in night, formed in a dark womb of mine shafts and tunnels, and born with a silver swoon. The largest silver nugget ever mined came out of a mine in Aspen. And one of the largest gold nuggets sits here in the front row, a gold nugget of generosity. Thank you, Boogie, for everything. I haven't told a quarter of the anecdotes in the book. Boogie's life comprises more story than any single book could tell. And I thank you for lending me your ears. I hope you enjoyed the stories I read. And now let's turn the podium back to Alan Altman. Thank you. I wrote that in 1 week.
I don't know how many in the audience are verklempt, but I am. You really have to get this book because it's written so beautifully, and the metaphors, some of which you heard, are just incredible. I would point out to you the two favorite metaphors I found in the book. The first was basketball as jazz. I mean, you heard that reading. That's incredible. And if you thought that was good, you have to read the metaphor of how playing pool is having sex. You will understand what I'm saying when you read this incredible book. Well, I would like to read something from the book as well. The Talmudic Academy was another world, a pale-colored four-story rectangular fortress of Old Testament traditions and beliefs that cast its shadow across the adjoining neighborhood, no matter where the sun was in the sky. All teachers were rabbis, distinctively dressed in drab, rumpled, ill-fitting black suits. Fashion had no cachet, only faith did. The rabbis imposed imperious Orthodox authority over their students and sternly punished misbehavior. He remembered well, he knew from personal experience, the hard, narrow edge of a ruler whacked against his knuckles. In the schoolyard, students at the All-Boys Academy chattered in Yiddish. In the classroom, they conversed in Hebrew. At 3 o'clock each day, they studied a foreign language, English. He paid little attention to academics. He skimmed over the wisdom of the Old Testament, but paid close attention to the testimony of his present circumstance. The lessons the harsh world around him taught sank deep into his being. He would always excel in street smarts. So I want to ask Boogie 2 questions. First of all, rumor has it, when he was in the Talmudic Academy, Boogie Wineglass sported payas. For those of you who don't know what payas are, they're the curly hair things that many Orthodox children and adults wear. So, Boogie, I want to know, first of all, is that true?
Yes.
Okay. Secondly, I want to ask a deep question and bring him up to answer it, and that is, the center of town was Boogie's Diner. Do you regret selling it?
Regret selling?
Yeah.
Yes, I do. Because when I closed Boogie's Diner, downtown Aspen lost its soul. When Boogie's Diner was open, I kept the prices cheap in the restaurant, and I would make my money selling jeans, of which I sort of invented with the holes in them. But, you know, I do some public speaking sometimes. I wasn't prepared to speak. But one of my favorite things in the whole world, one of the things I've taken away in my life, it's nice to be important, or it's more important to be nice. And I live by that motive. My wife and I, Gail, thank goodness for Gail, every time we get free and make some money, we give it away. Whether it be charity or certain people, I've helped many people get out of the hospital, pay for their bills, and do stuff, but I don't go to the press with it. When I give someone, I say, I want this kept between you and I. And I really believe that one of the reasons why I'm still alive is because I'm sort of nice to a lot of people. I really do. And by the way, Greg Lewis, who's sitting in front of me, an extraordinary writer. I mean, he makes me... But before I forget, I want to thank my wife, Gail, for putting up with me. And there's my beautiful daughter, Sky, and her, is it her fiance yet? And her fiance. Stand up for 1 second, Sky. Sky, Garrett, stand up. Stand up. Sky has an older sister, Sage, who's pregnant at 38 years old, who's going to have a third child. And then I have a son, Bo, who is somewhere, where's Bo at, Sky, this month?
Somewhere around Aspen, somewhere.
He's somewhere around Aspen, but we're still trying to find his way. But before I get off, I want to thank Greg. Thank you, Greg, for making me a hero. And thank you. And just thank everyone for showing up. I just have been very lucky. And for people who don't know it, I had 2 stage 4 cancers. And around, 13 years ago, I went down to 126 pounds. And one time I got up to 158 pounds when I boxed. And I was also in the ring with a guy named Sugar Ray Leonard. You may have never heard of him. And not only was I the token Jew in the gym, I was the token white person in an old black gym. So I don't know how I got to be a tough guy. But I guess maybe my background did that, of always being ridiculed when I was younger. As I stand here today, I feel like the luckiest guy in the world.
I apologize. I said Sage instead of Scott. Excuse me. Greg, coming up here. Are there any questions that you might want to ask Greg? I didn't think so. He did such a wonderful job describing. Oh, you got a question? Sure.
And you can ask me. You can ask Greg, or you can ask me. If I don't know it, Greg will know it. Does anyone want to ask any questions about anything? Yes.
Is Barry Levinson still considering the sequel to Boogie's Diner?
Well, I asked him. He's sure.
So we sent the book to Barry. He liked it very much. His response was, I'm not going to do anything with it. And our suspicion is that, well, I'll step back. There was a baseball game that Boogie and Barry went to, and Baltimore Oriole baseball game. That, by the way, Boogie almost bought the Orioles one time, and almost bought the, well, not the Colts, well, the replacement team for the Colts, an NFL franchise. Anyway, the big screen out in center field shows a television shot of Boogie and Barry and talks about the two of them. Barry is seated on the aisle of the stadium, and Boogie's one seat in. Well, with that, all kinds of people come to get their signatures, but they really only want Boogie's signature in the program. And so they keep leaning over in front of Barry. Can I have your signature? And then they're going to ask Barry for his, and they go away. Our suspicion is that Barry doesn't want to give Boogie any more publicity than he's already got. So I hope that's a satisfactory answer to the question.
Maybe get up and switch seats with him.
Oh, that's right. He made Boogie switch seats because he didn't want anybody leaning over and asking for Boogie's autograph anymore.
But I'll tell you one story, true story, that Barry Levinson witnessed when we were approximately 17 or 18 years old. I got into, in those days, if someone was slow dancing with someone and you tapped a guy on the shoulder, if he was slow dancing with someone for a couple of minutes, he would break. This one day, I was at Milford Mill Swim Club, and at nighttime, there was dancing. And I ended up marrying this girl he was dancing with. Her name was Pepper. Oh no, Joan, excuse me, got wives mixed up. Well, I've had 3 of them. But my favorite one, she's sitting right here. So I tapped this guy on the shoulder, which to break, because she was with, and the guy gives me one of these, pushed me away. Well, that was a big mistake. So I politely just hit him once, hit him twice, and on the way down, I lifted my knee and broke his jaw. The bouncer came and picked me up, all 148 pounds of me. That's the weight I boxed at too, by the way. Picked me up and threw me out. Now when I get thrown out, the guy who I beat up or whatever, he calls his older brother. And we were standing outside Milford Mill in the parking lot, and Barry Levinson was there too. And this older brother comes up to me, and I'm ready with him. I see him coming. As he gets closer, we go, Ch-! The blade was this big. And he actually puts it in my stomach right here. And Barry witnessed all this. I grab his wrists, I'm holding on for life. I'm against the hood of the car. Had it been in the center of the car, I would have died because all the ornaments of the cars are in the center. So I'm on the side and I'm holding on for life. And Barry's watching all this, and about another 3 or 4 other Jewish kids who were helpless. So I hold on to the guy's wrist, and eventually, I used to run marathons and I was in shape. He drops the knife. When we dropped the knife, I flung it away and I went bang, bang, and I stepped on his face and nose. They took him away in the ambulance. His cheek was broken, his nose was broken, his jaw was broken. And nothing happened to me.
Well, I think that's very well said as an example of what we as Jews need to stand up for a little bit more. Boogie Wine Glass, Greg Lewis. It's an incredible book. Thank you for coming, and thank you all for being here.